Hello, twisted humans.
Do you find yourself wanting to know more about the latest murder, conspiracy, cult, or haunting?
Then this is the podcast for you. I'm Alicia.
And I'm Sierra, and this is
Twisted and Uncorked. Hello and welcome, Twisted Humans, to a very special episode of Twisted and Uncorked. We have our friend Tara here, a spooky queen in podcasting. You may know her from her channel on TikTok, Spooky Sleuth, or as Tara from Three Spooked Girls, and now Concession Corner, which is very cool. She's building up her online presence. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Before we get into some spooky fun today, we just wanted to ask you a couple questions while we have the opportunity to have you on and our listeners can get to know you a little bit better. So first question, what made you want to get into podcasting? Because now you have two podcasts. So what was the motivation behind that?
So it was back in probably 2017, 2018, I had started listening to My Favorite Murder, of course, and that's why we drink.
They're like gateway podcasts.
Yes,
yeah, they are gateway podcasts.
love them. And I always laugh and be like, naively, I was like, this isn't gonna be that hard to do, it's probably easy. No, but I was like, this seems fun. And me and Jessica, my co-host and my best friend, we always talked about this stuff anyways. So I was like, why not try and see what happens? And if it's too much work and we don't want to do it, we'll quit. Or if it goes, great. And here we are 3 years later.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just a follow-up question that's not on there, but I'm just interested just based from your answer. Because like if you didn't like it or if you felt like it was too hard, would you also feel that there's like a little bit of guilt there to leave it behind?
Oh, yeah. Like, there's no way in hell that would happen now. Like, it is a part of both of our everyday lives. When we were on vacation, we felt we were not working or doing it. So there's no way we wouldn't. But like in the beginning, we were like, well, let's not put too much pressure on it. Let's see if we like it. And we've always had a lot of fun with it. So we just kept going, and we don't predict ever not going anytime in the near future.
That's awesome. I love that. What was the inspiration behind Three Spooked Girls? Because there's two of you, but the artwork is obviously a little ghost in the middle, which is very cool, by the way. I don't know if one of you guys designed that or how that came into play, but what was the inspiration behind the name?
Yeah, so when we started, we had another friend with us doing the podcast for about 2 or so months, and then she was going through a lot of life changes. She was going through a big divorce, all of that, so she had to step away. And we decided, how is this show going to look with just us two? And we had discovered, or I found the Bell Witch, and so I shared it with Jessica, and we're like, well, let's just, instead of completely rebranding, leave the name, but we want her to be our third spooked girl, and that's the ghost. And we work with an artist I had found on Instagram. She does all of our logo stuff. And yeah, that's just kind of where it's at. And we just kind of have left it as a joke, and it's always a good talking point because people always ask.
Yeah, exactly. That's funny that you say that because Sierra is actually in Tennessee.
Love it.
I was kind of bummed when I went to visit her to find out that they only have the Bell Witch Cave open during Halloween right now because of COVID. Yeah. So I was like, damn it. It's September. I'm so close. Come on, just let me in.
I have another question that is not on any list, but, comes from that answer you just gave. So it's obviously you two girls plus a ghost. Do either of you actively, practice witchcraft or try and communicate with spirits? And like, is there a possibility that there is a ghost with you at these times? You know what I mean?
Yeah, we
You've
both
manifested it so hard.
It's gonna happen now, but no, both of us since we were little, we've had a lot of paranormal experiences. My old house was extremely active. Not so much in this new house. I've only been here. We haven't even been here 6 months yet, but it seems like we've both had stuff kind of our whole lives, so that's also another thing. Jessica always tries to welcome it because she's like, I want to experience all the things, and I'm the one like, no, leave me alone. But then they just want to bug me, so it's fine. It's fine. Nothing too scary has happened, so it's okay.
All
Sounds like
friendly
fun.
ghost activity.
Yes. For now, thank God.
I don't blame her on that front because I grew up in a haunted house, and it's almost comforting because I was so used to it.
Yeah.
And I've saged this house a couple of times. Sierra likes to say that I'm just haunted, even though she's had some experiences in her house recently. So I think
Only
it's
after I
interesting
started talking to Alicia.
So they're like, all right, so now we're going to show you we're here.
So it's my fault now. Okay. You know what? I'll take it as long as they're not actually bugging you too much. But you're the one that brought in haunted furniture, so. Good question, though, Sierra. I didn't even think of that. But I figured questions would come up as we chatted anyway, so. How do you find managing two podcasts? Because obviously your husband and yourself have been together for X amount of time, and he was a good fill-in on Three Spooked Girls while Jess was on leave. Was it kind of a long time coming that you guys were going to start one together, or, you know, did it just come from that?
No, we had I'd been bugging him about it for a while. He just retired out of the military earlier this year, so his job now is a lot more a lot more free time for him.
Yeah.
So it's kind of similar. We always watch movies and stuff. We always talk about them. So we're like, all right, let's just do it for fun. For now, that show is only bi-weekly. So it's pretty easy to record content up front. You can do like a whole month's worth in one sitting.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just kind of something extra for us to do, something fun, and it's not too bad. It's pretty easy. You don't really have to research. We literally watch it and then just hop on
Chat
the computers
about
and
it.
record.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Before we get too much deeper into questions, do you want to explain both of your podcasts in case our listeners haven't heard them?
Which I doubt. But
Oh, no. Three Spooked Girls were true crime and paranormal. It is weekly, sometimes twice a week, and we cover anything from haunted locations with the history, and then for true crime, we do missing persons, cold cases, serial killers, pretty much all across the board there. And then my other podcast is Concession Corner that just started. We have a couple episodes out, and it is just a movie recap podcast. So far, we have done A Quiet Place 2, and we also have some other fun ones coming up. We're going to do some 80s movies. We just watched Ghoulies, which neither of us had ever watched, but it's an adventure if you have not watched it. It's fucking hilarious.
Is it hilarious in a spooky way or hilarious in a cheesy way?
Hilarious in a cheesy way because it was made in like 1985 and I don't think the budget was quite there, but it's just it was interesting because I kept seeing it on HBO Max, so I'm like, what the fuck? But after the holidays we may go to weekly. We're gonna see how things are going and how we're feeling and whatnot. But if you like movie recaps and dad jokes and curse words, then we're the peeps for you over there.
Is it all horror thriller type movies or just movies in general?
No, just movies in general. I'm the horror buff more than him, so we've left it open for pretty much all genres of movies.
That's awesome. Like, do you guys take turns picking one?
So we have a master list, and we voted in the Three Spook Girls Facebook group, had everyone vote what they wanted to see first type of thing. One we have coming up is Love and Monsters, and that's kind of like an apocalypse.
I love that
rom-com
movie.
thing.
I've not seen
good.
it yet.
So good. So good.
It
We
has
have that
Dylan
one
O'Brien
coming
in
out
it,
next.
Alicia.
Okay.
Yes,
You know I've
it's
seen
so
it.
good.
I love him.
Yes.
Right? I know,
How
me
can you
too.
not?
I was like, all right. But it totally exceeded my expectations. It was such a good movie. I loved it so much. So we have that coming up, and then we made like a giant list, and we're kind of just going down and picking it. So like I said, we'll have Ghoulies, and then we have other, you know, classics like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Top Gun, things like that too.
Nice.
And it's just an excuse to rewatch those movies that you haven't seen in a long time that are just awesome.
Have you ever seen those big posters that's like, there's one for 80s, one for 90s, one for 2000s, and it's just little squares, and you scratch one off and there's a movie title under it?
I haven't seen
It's like
those.
little scratch squares. Yeah, you guys should just like scratch off and watch
That would
movie.
be lots of fun. Yeah.
I love that.
I've never seen that. That's a brilliant idea.
I might have to go look. I bet I can find it on Etsy pretty easy. I love Etsy, so.
Yes. Like the map one where you travel, like when you scratch off wherever you travel in the world. Not that many of us are doing that right now, but
yeah.
Do you have any advice for small podcasters like ourselves? I mean, sometimes it's hard to pull yourself out of that mind space where you get a little bit of discouragement or, you know, maybe overwhelmed or however it is. Like, obviously you guys have been around for 3 years now. You guys just had your 3-year anniversary with 3 Spooked Girls. So I'm sure you and Jess both dealt with a little bit of that at the beginning.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I feel like that's a common thing with any kind of content creation. You know, burnout is real, especially around the holidays and stuff and when life's happening. My biggest advice is just to plan. Pretty much make a schedule to help you stick to it. That's what's really helped us. And if you can batch record at least like even just 1 week ahead will help because, you know, stuff happens. Like she was in the hospital. She was in ICU for over a week. So, and you know, we had already had stuff done. So like we technically didn't have to say anything, but we ended up telling people so they knew. And just honestly just keep going and be consistent and just try to remember. I know it's cheesy, but like try to remember why you're doing it. You know what I mean? Because I feel like sometimes we get focused on, you know, oh, these are the goals we have. This is what we want from it, you know, that kind of thing. And if they're not happening in X amount of time, it can get discouraging. But as long as you're having fun with it and you still love doing it, then just kind of, you know, hang in there and keep going. Because I don't know, it's a lot of fun. Like
it is.
Like I said, it's a part of my everyday life, and I couldn't imagine not creating content. It would just be really weird.
Yeah, you have that kind of creative part of yourself that you need to express, and you know, unfortunately, some of our day-to-day jobs don't always allow that unless you've gone to school for it specifically or in marketing or whichever. So it is kind of a cool outlet. And I don't know about you, but we've made so many cool friends through this podcast 100%. Too that we would have never met outside of that. And
100%.
Collectively spooky people, because, you know, you can't just go to any social gathering and be like, hey, I heard this really fun fact about how many bones kids have in their body when they're born. Like, looking at you, Sierra. People look at you like you're weird. They're like, oh my God, why do you know that? Like, I'm sure you know that we do fun facts for our episodes, and that was one that she shared recently. That was quite shocking. And you have two kids, right? Or just one?
Just one.
Just one. Okay. Maybe it's Jess's kids that I've seen in pictures and stuff too, but that's awesome. I don't know how you guys balance mom life and jobs and husbands, and I admire both of you for that.
Oh, thanks. A lot of caffeine. Testing and stuff goes wrong.
Yes, absolutely. Caffeine is always needed. I don't know if you can either of you can tell, but there was no coffee in my house this morning, and I almost turned into a demon. But that's very cool. And thank you, because, you know, it is, if you're not doing it, you'll find very quickly who's not doing it for the right reasons. I've found just from talking to them, I'm like, are you having any fun with this? Like, or is that just one goal, like one track mind? So,
right.
And you kind of already mentioned this, but some heroes in the podcast world or anybody that you look up to.
Yeah, definitely the pals from And That's Why We Drink. I love both of those humans so much. I think they're fantastic. Also, I'm sure since you're familiar with And That's Why We Drink, CK, he's actually our editor now.
Oh, wow.
I met him when we
from
first
the
started
early days
yes,
of And That's Why We Drink.
Yes, I met him on Twitter, and we've been podcast friends since the beginning.
Nice.
And when I needed to look for an editor to help me out earlier this year, it worked out with him, and he's a fantastic human. He's hilarious. He's nice. He's very knowledgeable. So, yeah, definitely a lot of awesome people we've met.
But that's very cool. And then, like, was there any, like, gateway in true crime that kind of made you fall in love with it? Like, for me, it was
Yes.
Forensic Files. I don't know about you.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like people our age, it's usually something like that. So my great grandma was obsessed with America's Most Wanted and Unsolved Mysteries. So I remember being like 5 to 8 years old for the first time watching it. We'd have like me, her, and my grandpa would like all have ice cream and be sitting there because I'd go to their house like every weekend and we'd watch it. And that kind of stuff never scared me. It just really like piqued my interest. So those shows and Forensic Files, and then, dabbling into like the drama shows like CSI and NCIS and stuff like that is kind of what did that for me.
Yes, I agree with that. Criminal Minds, also very good.
SVU.
Yes.
Addicted.
Just name them all.
Yes, all of them.
Somebody from those shows will
Cold
hear it
Case.
at some point.
Oh, okay, anyway.
Yeah.
There's not enough hours and part of why Sierra and I started like certain patron segments where we do recaps and like discussions like that is because it gives us an excuse to watch them too when we would not
Yes.
normally have time. So
Exactly.
it's been a fun little outlet. We just watched Scream and did that. We released that today.
Love it.
And I'm gonna admit something embarrassing. I've never seen Scream before that.
Oh man, that's like one of my favorite franchises.
Yes.
I watched that because I'm the youngest cousin, and I'm like the girl. Well, besides my two younger siblings, and I was the only girl. And me and one of my cousins, who I'm really close with, we watched it when I was probably too young, but it's fine because he's like 7 years older than me. And every time, like when Scream 4 came out, we both were like fangirling over it. And then now with the new one coming out in January,
Yes, that's so exciting.
And then he was giving me shit because in the trailer, the girl that dies first, her name is Tara. So he's like, look, her name's Tara. And he's like tagging me everywhere. It's like, I caught that.
You're like,
Let's
I'm not
move
gonna
on
be
now.
the first girl. I'm gonna be the final girl this time. okay?
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
Is there anything else you want to tell our listeners or anything like that before we dive into some trick or treats?
I don't think so. I'm excited. Yeah, that pretty much, that's what I do. I do the podcasts, TikTok, YouTube a couple times a month.
Yes, your
that's
YouTube
pretty
channel
much
is going really, like, it's great. I was excited for you
you.
to start that. I like your little background. That's the one thing,
thank
and
you.
Sierra has
Yes.
it too. I'm like, I need this in my life. I need a
Yes.
closet. I need a space, but
Right.
we'll get there.
I know.
It's
When I
on the
moved
vision
into-
board.
Yes, when I moved into this office, I was like, there is going to be a wall with all of my random spooky shit because I just love seeing that in videos and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, it just makes me so happy. I also have a tapestry on that wall that I thought about filming in front of because it says welcome to the shit show and it's like pink and all kinds of cute colors. But I'm like,
Nice.
maybe after Halloween because it
Maybe.
just makes me happy.
Yeah.
All
and
of
that's
my
great.
stuff is on this wall. So, like, you can see at the end of it there. So, like, this wall I've been trying to
build
add
up.
stuff to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it.
It's awesome. And it just gives you a little bit of like an expression of who you are and stuff too, right? So I have all of my stuff in front of me and my husband has to look at it every day and he's like, dear, like, why? Why do we have so many skulls? I'm like, because it's our thing. All right. So Sierra, you go first because you have 3. And I
Okay.
have 2 shorter ones. Or sorry, 2 longer ones.
So, I don't know if she explained the way this works, but
But
it's...
our listeners should know.
Yes. We are doing a trick or treat episode, and that is we are going to tell you stories, and you have to guess if this story is a trick or if this story is a treat. So if it's a trick, obviously that means it's fake, it's a lie, it's a creepypasta, or it's a something we just wrote ourselves. And if it's a treat, then it's true, even though usually they're not very treat-esque.
Yeah.
It's kind of scarier when they're true.
I literally
Right.
wrote that in my notes.
That's
I'm
the
like, why am
premise.
I calling this a treat?
Yeah. It's a little creepy.
I love it. I'm terrible at knowing, so I'll probably get them all wrong, but that's okay.
That's all right. It's fun either way.
The goal is to like totally trick you into
Yeah.
believing one way or the other, like totally torn. And I barely read Sierra's notes, so I just skimmed them, so I don't remember which one is which, but I'll keep my mouth shut.
All right, so here's my first one. In the 1970s, a man in France was abducting girls and forcing them into sex slavery. One of the girls escaped from him, and he tracked her down, tortured, and killed her. When he was finally caught, he was sentenced to death by guillotine in 1977. Trick or treat.
Treat.
Okay, so Hamida, I looked up how to say this and I don't remember.
Every time.
Jandubi was born on September 22nd, my birthday, 1949.
Should you be proud of that?
No, definitely not. He met Elizabeth Basquette in 1973 at a hospital where he was recovering from an amputation due to a workplace injury as a landscaper. Elizabeth reported that Hamida attempted to force her into prostitution. Her words, not mine. He was arrested, but eventually released and went on to force 2 other women into sex slavery. When he went back for Elizabeth, the other girls he had kidnapped were witnesses to the beating and killing, but were too scared of him to say anything. 1 month later, he kidnapped another girl who escaped and told police of the 2 he still had control over. And then, of course, they told the police about Elizabeth. Hamida was the last person to be executed by guillotine on September 10th, 1977, the same year that Star Wars came out. And yes, that was a treat. 1977 guillotine.
That's crazy.
Like,
Right?
That's
Oh my God.
insane.
Someone's head was cut off legally by the courts in 1977.
I
Right.
know, especially
So
when you think about like
creepy.
my parents had me really young, so they were born in 77 and 76. Or no,
Yeah.
75 and 76. But that's crazy to think that that was happening back then.
Right. They were
Right.
alive when someone was guillotined.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
So most guillotines executions were public. This one was not. The last public execution by guillotine was of a German serial killer in France in 1939. And the French, they said president. I don't know if the French had presidents at this time, but the French person in charge at the time banned public executions after this one because he worried that the crowd enjoyed it too much.
Yeah, is this the one where they were all like going to dip things of theirs in
Yes,
his blood?
yes. Women
Yes.
took their
Oh,
handkerchiefs
God.
and dipped it in his blood and like
What
took
the
it home. And he was like,
fuck?
"Okay, no more public executions.
Yeah,
this
we're
is
done with
morbid."
this now. That's okay.
Yeah, the bloodshed is too enjoyable for you weirdos.
Right?
So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's an odd souvenir to keep. But I remember reading
Yeah.
that somewhere and being like, "What the fuck?" Like, did you have to wear your bad handkerchief that day so that you weren't gonna
No,
get
they
that
probably
one
bought a
stained?
brand new one.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
bought a brand new one just for that.
Specifically for that purpose. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that is wild. That's a good one. All right. Okay, so my stories are a little bit longer. There's no history behind it. You just get a story for each. And you get to pick if it's a trick or a treat. And Sierra, you too. Pauline Decken suspected that something was very strange in her family, and she would later find out that she was right. In 1970, she was 5 years old. Her parents had gotten a divorce, and her father, Warren, was a heavy drinker and was pretty violent towards her mother and her brother. After the separation, she, her mom Ruth, and her brother, who remained unnamed, moved to the other side of Vancouver, BC, Canada, into their own home. In other words, as far away as they could get in Vancouver from their dad. She began noticing some strangeness in her mom's behavior. She was really jumpy and anxious all the time, but she could never figure out why. When she was 9 years old, her mom told her that when she was 9 years old, her mom told her and her brother that they were going to go on a vacation to Winnipeg, Canada, which is like mid-east kind of area. And they loaded up their van and drove across country to their destination. When they got to their vacation home, Ruth told her children that they were actually not going back to Vancouver and that this is where they lived now. The kids were obviously shocked because they were so young and their dad was still back in Vancouver. But over time, they started to make this their home. They made friends, they went to school. Her mom relaxed a little bit more, but just as things started to set into normalcy, of course, Ruth told them that they needed to pack up and move away again right away, and that they were going to New Brunswick this time, which is about as far east in Canada as you can get. What's even weirder, though, is that Ruth told Pauline and her brother that they were not to tell anybody that they were moving. Again, they had to start over creating their home and making friends and starting jobs and, that whole process that you go through when you move. When Pauline was 23 years old, she got a job as a newspaper reporter and moved a couple hours away from her family's home in New Brunswick. One day, she got a call from her mom telling her to meet her at a local hotel so that she could come clean about everything that had happened in her childhood. Obviously, Pauline had this gut feeling that things were weird in her family, and she was very excited to finally get the answers that she was looking for. She rushed to the decided hotel to meet her mom. Outside the hotel in the parking lot, her mom was pacing anxiously. When she arrived, Pauline went to greet her, but her mom quickly put a finger over her mouth, instructing Pauline to stay quiet. They walked inside the hotel room, and Pauline's mother put an envelope in her hand with a note written to put her jewelry inside because it's probably bugged, but don't speak yet. Pauline was confused, but did exactly as she was told, and once her mom felt safe, she put the jewelry outside of the door and admitted to her daughter the reason that they had moved around so much and so frequently as a child. It was because her father was a fairly dangerous mobster. When the pair separated, Pauline's mom found out that she had had a hit put on her head because she knew too much about the mob, and without being with Warren, the mob felt that she couldn't be controlled or trusted. Little pieces of the puzzle were starting to fit together for Pauline. Pauline's mom admitted that the times that she had rapidly thrown out food in front of their kids was because she felt that the food might have been poisoned. But after years of running, she was tired and decided to tell law enforcement that she and her family were in danger, and she was put into an FBI program called the Weird World. Basically, you have agents that follow you around in hiding, monitoring the mobsters, and making sure that no assassination attempts are made on the family members. Her mother handed her a radio that was a direct broadcast or connection between the agents and herself, and that they were pretty much following her at all times. She advised for her not to use it unless she was really in danger, because these agents would be putting their own lives at risk trying to save her. After years of intense anxiety and feeling as though she was in danger at all times, Pauline finally decided that she needed to move back with her mom. But her mom decided that it probably wasn't that easy and that they needed to keep tabs, kind of on each other, but having them both together would be too risky. Pauline was so anxious one day she called her mom and admitted that somebody had tried to break into her home. Her mom let her know that the FBI agents had caught these mobsters that had tried to break into her home and that she was safe now. Pauline admitted that this was a lie. She knew now that her mom had not been telling her the truth, and she wanted to know why. So, do you guys think that this is a trick or a treat so far?
I think it's a trick.
The whole time I was thinking it was a treat, because I was like, this is a lot of information. Until you said Weird World, and I was like, that can't be a thing.
It was FBI for me, because I don't know if other countries technically have FBI, because this is in Canada.
We do. So
I don't know things. I just guess.
I wouldn't have thought that either.
So Pauline learned after this that her mother had suffered from select delusion, which is basically somebody that has one delusion that they believe so fully, and that through process of osmosis, they had suffered from folie à deux, which is, a twin insanity, or, them starting
Shared
to
delusion.
believe it. Yeah, shared delusions. Exactly. So her mom had very much believed this her entire life, which is part of what caused her and her husband to become divorced. All of this was not true. However, the story itself is true. And Pauline later went on to write a best-selling novel called Hide, Run, Repeat by the same name. And I've not read it yet, but I've added it to my list because I thought that this was so interesting when I came across it. Can you imagine spending 25 years? Her last name is spelt, I think, Deken.
Okay, interesting. Because I was going to say, there's definitely not something called Weird World.
No.
But her mom said there was.
Yes.
So, okay, wow, yeah, that was interesting.
And generally, FBI agents don't communicate through radios to you.
Yeah. Man, that reminded me too of, I think it was on like Daria's Six Sad World, or like one of those kind of adult things. That's what it made me think of too with that name.
Yeah. What's happening? Yeah. No, I came across this because I'm from Vancouver. And I was like, holy shit, this is a real story. I thought it was fake too.
Right? That's crazy.
It was a little bit of a trick and a little bit of a treat.
Yeah.
Okay, you go.
All right. My next one, I don't know what order I want to do them in. Let me do this one. In the late 1940s, the Soviet government conducted a test on human subjects known today as the Russian sleep experiment. Subjects were put into a gas chamber type room for 30 days where they were exposed to a gas that would keep them awake so that scientists could test the effects of sleep deprivation. Trick or treat?
Ooh.
I want to say treat, because I can definitely see this happening, as bad as that sounds.
That's what I think, too.
But I hope it's a trick.
So the story goes that these subjects first started to show signs of insanity, one even screaming nonstop for days until his vocal cords ripped and he couldn't scream anymore. But after a couple weeks, they just went silent. In their silence, they turned mad and began hurting each other. Once the experiment was over, the 30 days was up, many test subjects had died because of the lack of energy to live. The few that were still alive had ravaged the deceased, ripping into their skin and eating their bodies, and even ravaging themselves, ripping open their own chest cavities. The survivors now preferred to stay awake. They begged for the awake gas and to stay in the chamber, but they had to be treated for their injuries. One of them died on the operating table. The others asked to be awake for their surgeries. Another fell asleep without awake gas and died in his sleep. Eventually, the last remaining test subject was put back into the chamber, but was acting like a wild animal, terrifying the scientists. When a scientist asked, "What are you?" the test subject smiled and explained that he was the inherent evil that is hidden in the minds of all humans that is kept in check by the act of sleeping. The scientist was so scared, he shot the last test subject in the heart and killed him.
Oh, fuck.
However, this is a trick.
Oh my god!
This is a creepypasta. But God, it's so good.
Oh,
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I've heard of similar experiments, so I was like,
Yeah.
this has to be true.
Yes, this is a creepypasta that was written in 2010 by a user named Orange Soda, and M actually tricked Christine with this on one of their episodes recently.
Okay.
Oh, well, wait, not recently. That was really old, actually. I just listened to all of the episodes. That's why I said recently. I heard it
Makes
recently.
sense. So I was like, I have heard something like this.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay, story number 2. When Gretchen Langera graduated and became a dentist, she felt that she needed change. School and training had been a long and grueling process, and she was tired of city life. That's how she came to live in a 6-bedroom farmhouse down a down a dead-end dirt road in the middle of nowhere. The farmhouse was absurdly inexpensive to rent, and the owner, a farmer who had multiple locations in the area, had no need for the house itself. It was an older place, and it hadn't been lived in for years, but the bones were good and the floors were level. There wasn't another house for miles. Milford, a prairie town of less than 4,000, was 25 minutes away. Milford also had a dentistry clinic with an aging dentist who was looking to cut back his hours, so it seemed like the perfect fit for Gretchen. She was starting to enjoy the slower pace of life on the farm, and that is when the strangeness started. The first odd thing that happened was in the middle of the night. There was a loud bang in the basement. It sounded like some empty cardboard boxes from the move had toppled over. Gretchen assumed that it was probably just the cats, as they were always making a ruckus. True farm cats. Love it. But when she woke up, she realized that both cats were sleeping on the bed next to her. She explained it away, deciding that she hadn't taken care to stack the boxes very well and that it had come crashing down as a result. She ignored it and she went back to sleep. Never ignore sounds in the night. Right. After that night, more strange things started happening that she couldn't ignore. On Halloween night, around 9:30 p.m., she decided she would take a relaxing bath before the onslaught of possible trick-or-treaters came, but from her city life experience, she doubted that any were going to come down the 1.5-kilometer driveway leading to the farmhouse. Slowly, she became aware that she was hearing something quietly clashing against her music that was playing. The cats heard it too and had their ears perked up, looking towards the door. She turned off her music and listened. She could hear something. Quiet music playing off in the distance. She immediately got out of the tub, threw on an oversized pair of gray sweatpants and a sweater that she had lying next to the bathtub, and she went to listen from the hallway. The music was so faint, she could barely make it out. It sounded like it was possibly coming from the kitchen. She slowly walked down to the kitchen, but there was nothing there. She definitely could hear the music, as it was just a tiny bit louder now. She grabbed a knife from the kitchen drawer and started walking through each room of the farmhouse, inspecting it closely. She turned on the light at the top of the stairs, unsure if she should try and be sneaky as she went down, or yell out that she had a knife. She ended up doing something in between. Every step she took along the way, she stomped aggressively and confidently. She checked every room upstairs, and now there was only the basement to check. She had been struggling to hear the music as if somebody had been turning it down every time she got closer. When she got to the main level, the music stopped. Nothing. She listened for a few minutes, but the music had completely disappeared. Only a deafening silence in the farmhouse. She needed to find the source of that music, but in the end she had checked every room, every closet twice, and realized how silly she must have been being. It was Halloween night after all. Obviously somebody had been trying to play a trick on her. She always considered herself to be a practical person, so after having no luck, she decided that she was going to go back to her bath, and the next morning she was going to do the only logical thing that she could do. Call her landlord, the farmer. He comes and goes between all of his properties. He tends the fields, fixes things around various farmhouses, so it seemed reasonable that he might have a work radio or something he forgot to turn off. She called him the next day and briefly explained what had happened. Laughing, he told her that the farm's previous owner had rigged up a radio to the sump pump so that if the basement flooded again, the pump turned on and thus the radio would turn on. She let him know that she had walked down to the stairs, though, and that she didn't see any indication of flooding. But he let her know that it could just be a small amount of water that would cause it to trigger, and he let her know that he would come by later that afternoon. It had rained heavily that day, so she figured this was a likely explanation. A couple of days later, the landlord came over to the sump pump and had a look, but there was no radio attached anymore. He couldn't think of any other way to explain the music, and this left only two possibilities in Gretchen's mind. Either local kids were playing pranks on her as she had initially thought, or someone was sneaking around the farmhouse. Oh my god, okay, my bun moved. on my head.
Scare yourself. Oh my god.
Oh god.
Because I'm sitting in front of a window, and oh my god, I just scared the shit out of myself. I thought somebody was behind me. We're good. Since Gretchen lived alone and she was a young woman in a large farmhouse, she thought that instead of paying for an expensive alarm system, she would adopt a big dog. There are so many dogs out there that need homes, so a couple days later, she brought home Big Rex, a large chocolate lab crossed with a Doberman. So a big dog. A month or two passed quietly after this mystery music on Halloween night, and it had even become somewhat of a joke. Her coworkers and friends asked her frequently if she had heard any music lately, teasing her, thinking, of course, that she had obviously imagined it. She had come to call it Farmer Joe. Any strange happenings that happened around the house was Farmer Joe. Every bizarre happening, something improbable, any noise, any misplaced or weird sounds, anytime she misplaced an object of hers, it was obviously Farmer Joe. Life became slightly less blissful when Farmer Joe started messing around with the doors. After her first New Year's Eve at the farm, she came home from work one evening and took Big Rex out to play in the yard. While they were running around in the snow, circling the house, they stopped dead in their tracks. The back door of the garage was open. Gretchen's skin prickled and she stared at the open door. She had been in the garage yesterday, organizing some of the gardening things from the fall, and maybe she had forgotten and left it open. She couldn't be sure and walked over and closed it. The next day, when she came home from work, she immediately went into the garage. The back door was open this time. Again, her heart sped up, and she loudly chastised Farmer Joe. She walked over to the door and pulled it closed a second time, 2 days in a row. A month later, she was having trouble sleeping. The first disturbance occurred when she had been in a deep sleep having a pleasant dream. She woke up coughing. There was a heavy taste of smell. Sorry, that doesn't make sense. There was a heavy taste and smell of smoke that had been filling her nostrils. She panicked. She immediately opened her eyes, thinking that the farmhouse was on fire. She grabbed her phone from the nightstand and started to call 911. It was difficult to breathe. The smoke was so thick. She stumbled to turn on the light switch, coughing the whole time as she flipped it on. The voice on the phone asked her what her emergency was. She looked around the room. There was no more smoke. The voice on the phone asked again what the emergency was. She still had the taste of smoke on her tongue and mumbled something non-coherent. She walked around the house, flipping on every light. No fire, no smoke. "I'm so sorry," she told the 911 operator. "I thought my house was on fire, but it must have just been a dream," and hung up. She went to the bathroom and found herself staring at her own face. Her eyes were bloodshot and red-rimmed, as if smoke had really been irritating them. The same dream became a regular occurrence in the following weeks. She would wake up believing that the house was on fire. One time, she even found a black smudge on her pillow that looked suspiciously like ash. She could taste smoke constantly. She could smell smoke constantly, but there was never a fire. Quickly as the nightmares started, they stopped. She heard it as clear as anything, that same music that she had heard exactly a year prior. She could hear the guitar. She could hear the banjo as clearly. She could hear it as clearly as it was coming from the bedroom down her hall. A sudden surge of adrenaline made her skin feel like it was on fire. She walked through the kitchen to the hallway and flipped on the second light switch. The music stopped. She barely had time to comprehend this when the microwave in the kitchen turned on and started making loud, horrible noises. She turned around and ran back to the kitchen, seeing sparks fly from her microwave. She whipped it open, and in the microwave laid a rusty nail. She was shaking. She slowly put it in her hand and closed the microwave. As she started to close it, she noticed in the door's reflection a long pair of legs standing behind her. As clear as anything, she could see him from the waist down, but all she could see was 2 arms at his sides and a hammer. He gripped it so tight in his right hand that his knuckles were tensed and his veins were visibly strained in his forearms. She had no idea if she screamed or not. She turned around so fast that she almost fell over. As she turned to see an empty kitchen. Her head suddenly began to pound, and an onset of a terrible headache occurred. She couldn't see him anymore. Of course she couldn't see anyone. She couldn't explain what was happening. But everything that she couldn't explain that she believed was Farmer Joe was likely whatever this entity was. And from the very first time she felt like something wasn't right, it's because it wasn't. Quickly, she gathered her things and went to her friend Kristen's house. She never went back to the farmhouse alone, and every time she went to pack something, she made sure she wasn't alone. She never saw the long-legged man with his hammer again. But the thing that she was most disappointed in is that she refused to believe her own gut instinct. Trick or treat. I know that was a longer one, but it was Halloweeny, so I had to tell it.
No, you're fine. I'm going to say trick, but I'm like, my gut is being like semi-no, because there are so many stories of people having fucking squatters in their house. It's creepy. Yeah. I had people send me stories of them legit in their own houses, like finding people living in their fucking attics and shit. I'm like,
yeah, like her friend Kristen said, have you ever heard of the men living in the attic? Like,
yeah, that's creepy.
What do you think?
I feel like this was on like a Reddit creepy stories forum.
Yeah,
like the person says it's true, but it's probably not.
I will tell you that it is a trick. As I mentioned, I grew up on a pretty haunted farm. And everything that was weird, my aunt said was George's fault, which was the little old man that used to live there before. So hence where Farmer Joe came from.
How did you come up with her name?
Gretchen?
Yeah, what was her last name?
Oh, what did I make it?
It was like some really long...
Gretchen came from Gretchen Wieners.
Yes, I was thinking
I thought of that every time you said Gretchen. But her last name, I was like, there's no way.
Langone. It's a Langara. It's a university here.
Oh, wow. Perfect.
That's amazing.
That was really good.
Okay, my last one. In 2011, while investigating the desecration of a grave, police found 26 mummified girls' bodies in the home of a 45-year-old man. This man lived in the same home with his parents, but all these years they thought their son just collected life-size dolls. Trick or treat.
It's a treat.
Treat.
It is.
Oh, fuck. I was hoping you were going to tell me no.
Anatoly Moskvin is a Russian linguist. It's just linguist. Gosh. A Russian linguist and historian who was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. He has always wanted to have children, but never married or even dated in his adult years. He once tried to adopt a little girl, but he was denied due to low income. In his research of ancient cultures, he took a great interest in cemeteries and spirits, and he began to believe that humans who buried their dead relatives weren't being very nice to the dead, and maybe the dead didn't want to be buried. He would go out to a graveyard and lay on the recently filled grave sites and talk to the person who was buried there. If they spoke to him and told him they didn't want to be in the cold, dark, lonely ground, he would dig them up and bring them home. Also, in his historic research, he learned about mummification. He would use salt and baking powder to dry the bodies and then wrap them in cloth and dress them. His intentions were not sexually motivated. He brought these dolls home, quote-unquote dolls, and treated them like they were his children, singing to them, watching cartoons with them, and even having birthday parties for them. When he was arrested, he said he knew it was illegal to take the bodies, but he was willing to risk it to save them from their loneliness. He was deemed unfit to stand trial and is now living in a mental health facility. How creepy is that? That's a real story.
Creepy and sad all at the same time.
Yes.
Honestly.
Oh my gosh. so many feelings.
Oh.
Don't like any of them.
No. Don't like that.
That story that we were just talking about, I heard that on Lore podcast. And the 2 stories that I just told you that were treats, I watched on Lore's TV show. So big shout out to Lore. Aaron Mankey,
that.
thank you.
Yes.
That's
That's
awesome.
another OG for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're getting up there, though, Tara. Your 3-year anniversary. I mean,
I know.
been doing
it's
the damn
crazy.
thing. We've only been doing this for 8 months. So thank you so much for coming on and playing this with
Yeah.
us, because we are both spooky lovers, of course. And it gave me an excuse to write about some creepy shit.
Yeah,
shout
that
out,
was fun.
shout out Gretchen,
Awesome.
Gretchen Wieners.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure.
For
I mean,
inspo.
yeah, exactly. I'm so bad at coming up with names. That was always my weakness with stories. I'm like, I don't know what to call people without making it too obvious or something too close to home. So
Both of the names in my true stories sounded so not real.
yeah,
You know, you got to come up with names from other countries, then no one will know.
Yeah.
exactly. And I hope, like all of us, you guys are going to check out Pauline Deccan's book, because that is wild. I can't imagine growing up in a world where you don't know what's real.
Right.
Yeah, that's insane.
And great job, Sierra, for those little history lessons that you gave us.
Thanks.
Don't
my favorite.
collect mummified people, and
Yeah.
yeah, just don't do it.
If they're talking to you from below the ground, you probably aren't actually hearing them talk.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a
Find help.
the Ripper situation where he's digging graves and God is talking to him. Nobody's talking to you.
Yeah, no.
And definitely don't be a part of any Russian sleep experiments, because it's not worth it. Sleep experiments at all. Just sleep.
Yes,
We all
please
need
sleep.
it for a reason.
Yeah.
That's the advice. And if you're going to move anywhere alone, make sure it's not 25 minutes away from anybody else in civilization. I mean, where I grew up was not that isolated, but creepy shit happened my whole life. So.
I want that isolated.
Yeah.
so.
I don't know if you guys do scary stories or listener stories on Three. Yeah, you do on Three Spooked Girls. Maybe I'll
Yeah,
send
you'll have to
my,
send some stuff.
I'll send
Yeah.
my haunted farmer story.
Love
into
it.
your- I don't think George was a farmer. I think I'm just assuming, but he lived on a farm. So
All of my stories are not paranormal. I saw a UFO.
Oh, you can
and-
send those too. We take
Yeah.
anything. We do, and we read true crime ones. Like somebody, two different listeners had semi encounters with Ted Bundy. So that was interesting.
Whoa.
we have a couple of listener stories, which, guys, send those in if you have them. Send them to us. Send them to Street Spooked Girls. You get to hear your name and your story twice. That's awesome. We've got a couple in the queue that we're really excited to read. So send them our way so we can finally do it. I can't keep hoping that horrible shit happens to Sierra.
It's always me. I always have a new
She
story.
always has a story to share on our listener stories.
It's awful. It's usually always true crime related. So
Yeah,
it's like,
your brother,
I'm a
the
magnet.
SWAT team, your
yeah,
like like what happens in your life?
the worst things.
I'm haunted. You're just destined to have weird shit happen.
I'm cursed.
That's a good pairing, right?
Yes.
Whereas you're like, no, I don't want anything to happen to me, and Jess is like, but I want to see it.
Thankfully, it never happens to me. It just happens to all the people I love. So,
Right.
good luck, Alicia. You haunted me. My curse is gonna rub off on you.
I don't like that. It's been lots of fun having you, Tara. I hope you enjoyed hearing some creepy stories and history and guessing whether or not they're true.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thank you guys for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for coming. Do you want to give some final plugs on where everybody can find you? And not that they need help, because you guys are very well known now, but
Yeah, so both my podcasts, Three Spook Girls and Concession Corner, are on all the podcast platforms. So Apple, Spotify, Pandora, all of that great stuff. If you are on TikTok, my handle is spooky_sleuth. That is also my Instagram name. And on any of the socials, our handle is Three Spooked Girls with the number 3.
awesome. And as always, you guys know where to find us. Don't forget to send in your spooky stories. It is spooky season after all. And always remember to leave a 5-star rating and review because it really does help others find us. We will see you guys next week for a regular episode. And in the meantime,
Keep
it
it twisted.